when we were going to break, I admitted to you that in retrospect, I was probably dead wrong, and you may have been too. When the signature structure was announced by the PGA Tour, fields of 70 to 80-ish, depending upon different avenues of entry, of 50 that were guaranteed from prior year performance, I didn't like it. And at times, I still struggle with it. I was thinking, why don't you make it like an invitational and make it a 120-player field. Still have a cut. It'll be small cut. Say 40 players-ish, but it'll be a cut. And it's in keeping with, golf's tradition, what we're all used to. Basically, you eat what you kill. But if you look at the way that the players have churned through the top 50, because my whole sense was that this is a rich get richer scenario, that the way the structure is built, and I was just talking about it, for example, the way that it benefited, say, Ricky Fowler this year. Full credit to Ricky, played very well this past week. He's a great guy. I understand why people want him in the field, but there is a question of balance and equity in terms of how players get into these elite positions. And I was like, they get extra FedEx Cup points. Is this a situation where it's going to be a have and have not? Because if you can get into those signature events, you've almost guaranteed yourself the continuance. Well, PGA Tour told us not so much. The PGA Tour initially estimated a turn that was over 40%. They modified that a few months later last year to about 36%. Well, you know what? The turn went to the former, not the latter. And it's fascinating to take a look at these numbers. So here's a top 50 churn on the PGA Tour. This is, if you please, numbers at the end of the 2024 season, or this you please, I was talking about the start of this. J.J. Spawn started 98th, third currently. Justin Rose, 55th to 4th. Remember, it's top 50. All these numbers I'm starting with here are people that were outside, some of them way outside. Harris English, 57 to 10. But look at Andrew Novak, 86 to 11th currently. Maverick McNeely, 53rd to 15th. Nick Taylor, 58th to 22nd. Chris Scotterup, 95th to 26th. Jacob Bridgman, 121st to 27. Look at Ryan Gerard. I can't give you a number in FedEx Cup points because he was on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's 32nd now. Daniel Berger coming back on the long trail, fighting his way back from 140th to 33rd. Ryan Fox from 106th to 34th. Look at Brian Campbell with what he did. Again, go back to the end of last year, start of this year, Korn Ferry Tour. Got his status through, 39th. Michael Kim, 117th to 42nd. Bud Cauley with his march back, a long march back from that very serious car accident some years ago, 186th to 46th. And there you see Ricky Fowler, 108th to 48th. So very, very impressive. Now, time now for our Flight Scope Did You Know? Because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know where you're going. You can know your numbers with their new i4 rangefinder. It is absolutely remarkable because it takes in all considerations, including humidity, wind, and more, slope, you name it. All right, top 50 churn on the PGA Tour. This is what I'm saying to you. This is where I'm looking at this now and going, yeah, I think I was too harsh in my judgment. Were you? 21. There's only 50. 21 new players jumped into the top 50. That's a 42% churn. 13 of those 21 guys came from outside of last year's top 85. If you thought I was going to say top 50, I didn't. 13 of 21 came from outside of last year's top 85. 7 of those 21 guys are under the age of 30. I think that's significant. PGA Tour expectations were 40%. That was in March of 23. Then they amended it in June of 24 to 36%. 6 of the current top 15 came from outside of last year's top 50. 2 players jumped from the Korn Ferry Tour that I mentioned to you, and 6 players jumped from outside the top 100. so significant. All right, and I want to focus on these either the new faces or young guns, if you will. First of all, those guys that are under 30. Jacob Bridgman is only 25 years old. Chris Gotterup at 26, Ryan Gerard at 26, Harry Hall at 28, Sam Stevens at 29, Maverick McNeely at 29, Ben Griffin at 29. The vast majority of those players of that particular list we put together from the United States, but Harry Hall from Great Britain. It's just interesting because we're on the verge of a Ryder Cup and you're looking at names that are likely to inherit, if not be a part of that which still lies before us. That remains to be seen. As to these fresh faces, let's focus on a few of these players specifically. First of all, Andrew Novak. In 2024, his FedEx Cup ranking again was 86. Currently, he's 11th. He's 30 years old. I'll give you a couple of his strokes gained stats that are very, very good. Strokes gained total, he's 29th. Strokes gained putting, he's 36. Now, bear in mind, this is Andrew Novak, who had that exact same rib injury as did Xander Schauffele. His hit him just before the U.S. Open and carried on for the last 2 weeks. I have a feeling that he's on the other side of it now with the way he's currently playing once again. 2025 season. Andrew Novak had 10 top 25s. 10 top 25s. 5 of those were top 10s. Runner-up at the RBC, he won at the Zurich along with Ben Griffin. So Andrew Novak was on the Fairways of Life show with us just a few weeks ago. It was at the Travelers Championship. In fact, that was where he told me about the injury and trying to fight his way through it. Told me it hurt him the most when he was in really heavy rough, right? And that's what he faced at the U.S. Open. We knew that. But we were talking to him. If I had to kind of put this cut into context, it was mostly about the ascent. It was mostly about, playing well in 24 and the validation and the confidence that comes along with this, the familiarity, if you will, of the nerves and otherwise that come from having yourself in position. Here's Andrew from a few weeks back.
Last year was big for validating to myself that I can play. Mm-hmm. I think statistically, I hit almost every single one of my goals last year, but results wise, I hit almost nothing. It was such a weird year. I think I was 5th on tour in stroke average last year. I was top 25 in total strokes gained. Crazy good year, but I didn't turn it into anything super productive. I made almost all my cuts, which is great.
Yeah.
But I just never really finished top 10. I had a couple top 10s, but they were all kind of sort of backdoor. They weren't really in contention. And so I think going into last fall, I wanted to make it a point to really try and put myself in contention because I was just kind of sitting there after, I'd missed the playoffs. So I had a month or so before I started playing the fall schedule. Mm-hmm. And I was able to kind of sit down and look at my stats. And I'm like, there's no reason I shouldn't be up there trying to win these golf tournaments. I clearly can play. I truly believe if I can just put myself in that spot as much as possible, I will continue to get better at it. And it will be easier for me going forward when I'm, in those spots.
Fascinating stuff from Andrew Novak. So let's go back to that graphic once again, where we're talking about these young guns and what it can mean, these fresh faces on the PGA Tour. And I know we picked out 3 of them, and it was with specific intent because 2 of them we had a chance to talk to. Jacob Bridgman, 2024 FedEx Cup rankings, 121st. Current ranking, 27th. It's remarkable. He is 25 years old. Strokes gained total, 51st. Note this. Strokes gained putting, he is 10th. 2025 season, 8 top 25s, 5 top 10s. 3rd place at the Valspar, runner-up at the Cognizant. Good player at very tough golf courses. And when we hear a player's 25, what's the first thing you always think about? Oh, he's got to absolutely crush the golf ball. It's rare when you look at it and you go, 10th in strokes gained putting. Interesting array of skills. And these are players that we're going to get to know better and better and better. That's why we're noting them. Ryan Gerard is one of them. 2024 FedEx Cup rankings. He was on the Korn Ferry Tour in 2024. Current ranking, 32nd. He's 26 years old. Strokes gained total, 51st. Strokes gain approach, 27th. I'm not giving you all. Obviously, I'm just picking a couple of stats here to show you. 2025 season, 9 top 25s, 4 top 10s, a runner-up at the Valspar. He won at the Barracuda. So at the Valero, I beg your pardon. So when Ryan was with us just very recently, I asked him about, winning on the PGA Tour, because that's a monitor you're now going to carry for the rest of your life. And he said it was a lifetime goal, but he said it was really interesting. You're about to hear this. Where he said, but there was an emptiness to it. And I loved what he talked about, because it wasn't a lack of gratitude. It wasn't a lack of appreciation of the grind and how he got to where he always wanted to be. It was a hunger that there was something more there, that he wanted more, and he wanted to keep pushing. His comments overall, I thought, were fascinating. Let's hear from Ryan.
I worked my entire life to get to the PGA Tour, to give myself a chance to win. And it was really just a dream to be a winner. And the fact that I accomplished that, and that accomplishment, feels so fulfilling, but it also feels so empty. It wasn't exactly what I expected. It was something that was amazing, but just kind of like eats at you a little bit to get the next one, to go out there and make sure that it's not the only one that you get. For someone like me that could just sneak in kind of under the radar and start dead even with Scotty, I mean, it's kind of a perfect year for someone to come in and shake things up. So I have absolutely nothing to lose. And I don't say that in a way that's like, other people do have things to lose, but I shouldn't be here this season. I mean, coming off the Corn Ferry Tour, it's really hard to just keep your card, especially in a year where there's only 100 jobs instead of 125.
So the significance of what he was saying there, I thought, came in multiple levels. That, first of all, what we already talked about, that emptiness that he was talking to. And I think that when you hear from great champions, I remember Tiger used to say it all the time, where you celebrate for that night and, you kind of share it with your team, but then you're right back to the grind again. It's that thirst, it's that hunger that the great ones have. And I love that Ryan was demonstrating to us how important it is to him. You get that win, instead of just, sitting on his laurels, he wants to go out and win again. I think that was really healthy. But the comment that he made with Scotty Scheffler was in reference to the fact that the Tour Championship is changing this year. And that if you get to Eastlake, if you can be one of those 30, you could win the Tour Championship. And his perspective is, which goes beyond just the Tour Championship, is that he's playing with house money. Nobody expected him to be there. I suspect he might have been the only one, because we talked about his confidence in that interview. You can find it on the Fairways of Life YouTube page. And I just think he's, again, one of these fresh faces that we're already getting to know, but we're going to get to know even better with the way all of this is structured. Because if you look at the way that the tour is structured right now, actually the world of golf is structured right now, the ratings for golf are up across the board, right? And those ratings for golf are the way that I think all of you vote, right? Because all these things that we hear happening around the game, all these things that churn about the game of golf, none of it would happen without all of you. I call you guys the 99.99%. We focus so much on what the top tier does. We constantly talk about, will the different leagues come together and live in the PGA Tour, et cetera, when the reality is the game of golf is not struggling. The game of golf is booming because of all of you. So that takes me back to what we were just talking about. And what we were talking about was this idea of, how do we know that the people like what's happening? Ratings are how you vote. And the ratings are very, very good in 2025, which brings me back to that conversation that I started this segment with. Was I wrong? my assessment of, well, there's the way that golf is traditionally done, that this signature event 50 where they're getting higher FedEx Cup points seems structured to me like an old boys network where the rich get richer, and all of a sudden that's not the way it turned out. We had a 42% turnover. Did you expect that? Absolutely remarkable. We're being introduced to these great young players that we can see their ascent right before our eyes. In many cases, in fairness, I should mention, the strength of fields of the non-signature events went up because of the way that the numbers started to become even more concise in 2025 heading into 2026, namely the top 100. But it wasn't only that. It was the top 72. It was also those that are in the top 50 and otherwise. So all of this made a difference. All of this means something. And I thought you guys would find it absolutely fascinating.